First of all, I am a great nature lover. And I have a very profound, I've had it all my life, all my childhood and all my existence, a very, very close feeling to the earth. It means something to me. It's my planet. I think that term that you find amongst certain Indian tribes and non-Indian people in the world, Mother Earth. Their title for the earth is Mother Earth, you see. I have a great love for the earth, so that I enjoy the earth. And I've been in the Andean mountains, I've been in the deserts, and I don't know which I love the most, whether I love the Andes most, whether I love the deserts of Africa most. It's hard to say, because I have this profound affinity and love for the earth, and I wish more people had it. It's a lovely planet that God gave us.
People have crossed more frontiers than Madame Ruhiyyih Rabbani. 185 countries and counting, including 36,000 miles across Africa by Land Rover. From the rainforests of the Amazon basin to the Peruvian Altiplano, from the great western cities to remote Pacific atolls, Arctic villages to the Australian bush, her world-circling activities have brought her into close contact with the full richness and diversity of the human species. Madame Rabbani is equally at home with royalty, heads of state, or the simplest village dwellers. She has established friendships across the widest range of human diversity, becoming a true citizen of the world. Much more than a world traveler, her unique and remarkable life represents the outward expression of an inner spiritual reality, the recognition of the oneness of the entire human family. Her story is intimately linked with the emergence on the world stage of a remarkable spiritual movement, the Baha'i Faith, a modern and truly global religion, incorporating the eternal spiritual values of all religions and providing a plan for a modern world system based on spiritual unity and unprejudiced cooperation between all nations and peoples. Madame Rabbani was born in 1910 as Mary Maxwell. Her father, William Sutherland Maxwell, was a famous Canadian architect whose considerable reputation has grown even greater with time. His buildings are known throughout Canada. Her mother, May Ellis Bowles, who was living in Paris, became the first American in Europe to accept the Baha'i Faith in 1898 and one of its first disciples in the Western world. She was among the first party of Westerners to visit Abdu'l-Baha, the son and successor of Baha'u'llah, while he was still a prisoner of the Ottoman Empire in the penal colony of Akka in 1899. She became a true apostle of the new religion and a famous Baha'i teacher. Her last heroic act was a trip to teach the Baha'i Faith in South America. Though elderly and in frail health, her love for the Latin people impelled her to visit Argentina, where she died on March 1st, 1940, just a few days after her arrival. She is buried in Quilmes Cemetery outside Buenos Aires. Little wonder then that her daughter would have an extraordinary life, becoming the highest-ranking international official of the Baha'i community with the title, the Hand of the Cause.
But their mission in life, if you like, is to help people to understand the Baha'i Faith, to hear about the Baha'i Faith, to give as much of an impetus to the spread of the Baha'i message. You don't have to accept it. If you don't want to be a Baha'i, don't be a Baha'i, but for heaven's sake, listen to its message. Because in economic, social, spiritual, moral teachings, it is very advanced.
In a half-dozen books and in countless lectures and talks, she has set forth the essential teachings of the Baha'i religion. In 1937, she was married to Shoghi Effendi, the great-grandson of Baha'u'llah and the appointed hereditary head of the Baha'i Faith. She became fluent in the richly poetic Persian language, adding to her already impressive command of English, French, and German, a necessary requirement in her new life, and in addressing the many Persian pilgrims from Iran in their own language. For 20 years, she served as the most trusted secretary to Shoghi Effendi, answering the burgeoning volume of his correspondence as the Baha'i Faith rapidly spread all over the world, and tending to the myriad other matters which fell upon her as the wife of the head of the Baha'i Faith. In 1940, during the turbulent war years, her distinguished father joined them in Palestine, and during this period completed his last great work, designing the superstructure of the famous Shrine of the Bab, final resting place of the martyred herald of the Baha'i Faith on Mount Carmel in Haifa, Israel.
On behalf of the guardian of the faith of Baha'u'llah, I have the great honor of dedicating this first Mashrak al-Azkar of the Western world to public worship.
In 1953, Madame Rabbani represented Shoghi Effendi at the inauguration of the first Baha'i House of Worship in the Western Hemisphere in Wilmette, Illinois.
Raised by contributions from its followers
Since that time, she has inaugurated Baha'i temples in Sydney, Australia, Kampala, Uganda, Langenheim, Germany, Panama City, Panama, Apia, Western Samoa, and most recently, the highly acclaimed Baha'i House of Worship of the Indian subcontinent, affectionately known as the Lotus Temple of Bahapur.
I have the great honor of dedicating this mother temple of the Indian subcontinent to public worship. Now this glorious marble lotus, this exquisite symbol of purity, beauty, perfection, and mercy, enfolds us, bidding us unite in peace, proclaiming to all men the underlying verities of the Baha'i Faith, the unity of God, the unity of His prophets, the unity of mankind.
The untimely death of Shoghi Effendi in November of 1957 was a terrible blow to his wife, as well as the Baha'is throughout the world. The worldwide affairs of the Baha'i community were safely managed from its world center by a council, including Madame Rabbani and 8 other senior officials of the Baha'i Faith, pending the election of its supreme body, the Universal House of Justice, at the first Baha'i International Convention in 1963. With the orderly development of the world-embracing institutions of the Baha'i Faith secured, Madame Rabbani began her world-encircling travels, visiting Baha'i communities young and old in every corner of the globe. Her travels have taken her to practically every country in Africa, all of Latin America and the Caribbean, North America, Greenland, Iceland, and all of the principal island groups in the Pacific Ocean. She has undertaken repeated and extensive travels throughout Asia, visited all of Western Europe, and made 5 trips to China, including Chinese Mongolia, the Gobi Desert in Manchuria, the People's Republic of Mongolia, Sakhalin Island, and Tibet. More recently, she has traveled extensively throughout Romania, Poland, Bulgaria, the Czech and Slovak republics, and 11 of the republics of the former Soviet Union, including notable visits to the Sakha and Buryat republics. In the course of these travels, she has given countless lectures, met many leading dignitaries, and been interviewed on radio, television, and by the world press.
Help them to have
Another dimension of her travels has been her many meetings with heads of state and prominent figures in many lands.
As an official of the Baha'i Faith, traveling to visit the Baha'is all over the world, because there are Baha'is all over the world, I have automatically come in contact with leaders, spiritual leaders and political leaders. And I think that the one that I wanted most to meet, the one that I admired the most, was Haile Selassie, the emperor of Ethiopia. This little man lost his kingdom, was invaded and taken over by foreign power from Europe, and he went and lived in a boarding house in England, and he got back his country. And when he arrived at the airport, because I went there and I met him, which was a great honor, gave me his coronation medal, which was a greater honor, and as a souvenir because I had taken him some kind of a gift. Anyway, the point was that he arrived at the airport, and he was a small man, a very neat, small person. And they wanted to put him in a bulletproof car and take him to his palace. And he said, "I know my people. I'm going in an open limousine." And they were afraid he'd be assassinated. He said, "I know my people." He was a wonderful man, one of the few world leaders that I've ever had the honor of meeting that I could truly admire.
Whether opening an exhibition at the British Museum, addressing the parliaments of the Buryat and Sakha republics, addressing leading scientists, or delivering the keynote address to the 30,000 Baha'is from more than 200 countries gathered at the Second Baha'i World Congress in New York City in 1992. She has won the respect and admiration of leaders of thought in all walks of life from every corner of the world.
And an exile said, "I desire but the good of the world and the happiness of the nations." And I think that this is a very, very important and singularly neglected statement of Baha'u'llah. Because what does he say? He says, "I desire the happiness of the nations." Doesn't say their prosperity, their welfare, their fame, that they should behave themselves, anything else. All he says is, "I desire the happiness of the nations."
Notwithstanding the ease with which she moves in the leading circles of influence, learning, and authority, Madame Rabbani is perhaps even more widely known and loved in countless towns, villages, and hamlets throughout the world for her profound and intimate connection to the indigenous peoples of the planet. This remarkable relationship is beautifully displayed in this film, The Green Light Expedition, which she produced, documenting her 7-month trip to dozens of indigenous communities in the Amazon basin of Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, Suriname, Bolivia, and Peru.
I have come a very, very long way to see your faces again.
He venido desde muy, muy lejos para ver vuestras caras nuevamente.
And I cannot tell you how happy I am to be here.
He says, in this life, there is only two things: life and love. The way you have come, and the way the rest of us have come to them. It shows that you love them. He says, so many people who live in the city consider them the lowest people in the country. And you have come especially to see them.
Tell them that I appreciate very, very much what they've said, but in coming to the village, we are remembering the words of Baha'u'llah himself. He said that the city is the home of the body, but the country is the home of the soul.
I'll give you an example of why I love indigenous people. There's a cleanness and a sanity in so-called primitive people still living close to nature and in the heart of nature that you don't find in our great cement jungles of our civilization. And that attracts me very much. I love the indigenous people. I can't put it in words, but I always feel entirely at home with indigenous people, and I've met them all over the world, from the Eskimos to the Indians in the jungles of South America and so on, and I have a great love for them.
Madame Rabbani continues her services at the World Center of the Baha'i Faith, meeting with the growing numbers of pilgrims and visitors, as well as serving as a member of the International Teaching Center, the administrative body responsible for the promotion of the Baha'i Faith at the global level. For Baha'is, the pilgrimage is a particularly meaningful event. They visit the prison city of Akka, site of the most intense sufferings in Baha'u'llah's 40-year odyssey of exile and imprisonment. The crowded cell where he, his family, and a group of the closest believers spent 2 terrible years. Walked the streets where Amatu'l-Baha, his son and appointed successor, ministered to the needs of the poor, and eventually received the first Western pilgrims, including May Bowles Maxwell, the mother of Madame Rabbani. In a setting of simple dignity and unmistakable reverence, they visit and pay their respects at the resting places of the Bab on Mount Carmel, and of Baha'u'llah just outside Akka, in the center of the beautiful gardens of Baji. Visitors cannot fail to notice both the incredible diversity of the people and the sense of intense devotion that prevails amongst the crowds flocking to the Baha'i properties. Still, most of the poor in the world can never hope to come, nor can those in certain countries where this gentle, all-embracing movement has become the target of religious fanaticism and persecution. For those who, for many reasons, may not be able to visit, Madame Rabbani has, with characteristic thoughtfulness, produced a unique documentary film, The Pilgrimage, in which she personally conducts an informative and inspiring tour of the sites of historic significance at the spiritual and administrative center of the Baha'is of the world.
Shoghi Effendi chose a famous Greek temple as model for the archives building, with its Ionic capitals. The seat of the Universal House of Justice is also in the Greek style, but adapted to the needs of a modern building. In this case, the predominant order is Corinthian, as shown in these beautiful capitals on top of the 58 columns of the building.
It is far too soon to attempt to assess the rich and varied life of this extraordinary woman. Her literary legacy, together with her unique record of service through most of this critical century in the development of the Baha'i world community, would alone assure her a lasting place of honor in the hearts of future generations. Yet there is so much more. Accompanied by a single woman companion, she has visited more places on this planet than many of the famous explorers of history. Along the way, she has touched and been touched by the incredible richness of this Mother Earth and its peoples.
My message is based on having been a Baha'i all my life and having been, if you like, illumined by the extraordinarily international concepts of the founder of the Baha'i Faith, Baha'u'llah. He envisioned one world, you see, it's one planet. Now because of modern science, it's a very small planet. Laura, what are you going to do with one planet that's become very small and an increasing population and all these millions and billions of people, to get them to live cooperatively and share, if you like, the spiritual at least, and some of the physical benefits of this wonderful planet that we have. Well, I've seen all the great waterfalls of the world, but I don't think people realize that in the south of Brazil is one of the most marvelous sights of the world, and that is Iguazu. It's one of the most awe-inspiring sights on the planet. I myself, as a human being, going back to Iguazu so that I can look at it again before I die. It's so beautiful.